I hate to preface the video this way, but this is going to be the worst fight on the card. You got Gian Villante moving up to heavyweight, taking on the Crochet Boss, Maurice Greene, and it's an interesting fight for a couple of different reasons, because Maurice Greene, for what it's worth, he's lost his last 2 fights, but they're a really good competition. I mean, you can say what you will about Sergey Pavlovich so far in the UFC, but he was a tough out in Fight Nights Global, and he can knock anybody out. Tons of power. I mean, yeah, he fought a really tough guy in Alistair Overeem in his UFC debut. But Maurice Greene, okay, so you lose that fight, back to the drawing board. Who do you get? The boa constrictor, Alexei Oleinik. And he got submitted in that fight in Texas. It was an interesting one. Maurice Greene, for what it's worth, a guy that trains at one of the best gyms for the bigger guys. And I'm talking about Jackson Wink. You get to train with the likes of, who does he have, Matt? John Jones. We're talking Juan Adams. We're talking some of the best in the biz. See, I said this was the worst fight on the card. I got to try and pump the tires. Gian Villante, a guy who trains in New York. He's got a good camp, moving up again, like I said, from light heavyweight to heavyweight. His last fight did not go well, and his fight before that did not go well, even though he won it against Ed Herman in Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada. But his last one against Michael Olszewczuk, that's a really tough one. What can we take from any of these previous matchups? I mean, Maurice Greene, for what it's worth, I'm going to name some of the guys that he's fought because it's fun. Jeff Hughes in LFA. Didn't win there, but he beat him in the UFC. He fought one of my favorite names in MMA, in Przemysław Musiala, over in The Ultimate Fighter. And then it was a loss to, where you at, Juan Espino? Where you at, Juan Espino? You won The Ultimate Fighter. I want to see you fight in the UFC. Where have you been? The Spaniard, Juan Espino. But in terms of this fight, Matt, like Gian Villante, what are his keys to victory?
So I always say this on NBA draft night. The sooner they bring up your personality, the worse you're going to be long term. One of the first things they always bring up when they talk about Gian Villante is how nice of a guy he is and how much fun he has. And I'm sure that's true. He seems like he's always having a great time when he fights. But it's really bad when you're about to get into a fist fight and the first thing they talk about is he's a really nice guy. And then there's just kind of crickets, and then they talk about what your opponent does well. His skill set, has never really changed. Very much kind of that sprawl and brawl type of a guy, but he doesn't have the output that really consists with that game plan. Because when you look at Gian Villante, he tries to kind of emulate a bigger Justin Gaethje. He's a good wrestler. He doesn't really use it offensively, and he likes to keep the fight standing. The problem is, you know the power, the speed, the accuracy, and the technique that Justin Gaethje has? Ugh. Gian Villante doesn't have those things. He does have fairly heavy hands, though. My issue, he knocked out Corey Anderson early in Corey Anderson's career, little fun fact. But when that's the best thing I can say about you, your career's been, rocky at best. Maurice Greene, the Alexei Oleinik fight, I don't think it was the worst performance ever. Yes, he lost to him, and yes, he lost to him by submission. But you have to remember, in that fight, there was long periods on the ground where Oleinik had submissions locked in, and Maurice Greene just refused to tap for minutes at a time and was able to kind of ride out some of those really bad positions. So if the fight does make it to the ground, I would favor Maurice Greene out of these two. Again, not saying much, but I think it's going to come down to who is the better cardio, or who is the worst cardio at least, because Gian Villante does, he gets worn down during a fight. Maurice Greene doesn't have the best cardio in the world, but when the fight is standing and when he's not afraid of the takedown, he can kind of stay technical. He's got a good inside leg kick from his back leg. He has decent boxing, and he's a huge guy for the division, especially against Gian Villante, who's moving up from light heavyweight. Yes, he's kind of a thicker guy, like he's well built, if you will, but he's not tall compared to a lot of these heavyweights. He's not really filled in like a lot of these heavyweights, and I think Maurice Greene's going to kind of be able to walk away with a decision, just really work his jab, keep the fight at distance, not engage in any of those crazy brawls, and I think Maurice Greene will have an easy win.
This is not like when Marcos Rogério de Lima moved up from light heavyweight to heavyweight. This is not that. They are not the same things. And Gian Villante later in his career, I remember asking him, and I hate to draw from it, but 2 years ago now, UFC Moncton, or a year and a half ago, my question to him in the scrum was, do you think you're going to move up to heavyweight? He entertained it, and now 2 fights later, he's here. Again, you talked about it. The fact that Maurice Greene's going to have 4 inches of height, 6 inches of reach, one of the bigger heavyweights, one of the bigger fighters in the UFC. And he can typically draw from that if he's able to find success, if he finds success in certain fights, that's why he's able to use his distance well. If you can close distance, you can typically get a win. I'm surprised by the odds here because if you look at it, Maurice Greene, a minus 225 favorite, Gian Villante coming back, a plus 180 underdog. And if you look over in Tapology, out of 794 votes, 81% going with Greene, 71% predicting the knockout. Do you see it going that way? Or are these guys just going to tire out and tap out due to exhaustion?
So I think Maurice Greene's gonna win the first round, and then I think both guys are gonna be really tired. That's really the best example I can give. So maybe Gian Villante can kind of swing his arms for a decision win by winning the second and the third, but more likely than not, I think Maurice Greene's gonna be able to get a decision win.
I think Maurice Greene's going to be able to go in there and finish Gian Villante.
Really?
I think, Gian Villante, you can draw from the last fight, but he has been over his career susceptible to body shots. And the fact that Maurice Greene, if he can do any sort of damage early, he should be able to get a win. And as the fight progresses, I know Gian Villante's coming up in weight. I just don't think that's going to really help the gas tank all that much. So it's a fight. It's going to happen. We just covered it. We're both going with Maurice Greene. And you're not going to want to miss the rest of our predictions.
They get better, guys.
They're all A pluses. They're all solid gold. This is just one of the duds. But yeah, we've got an extended preview of Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker, so you're not going to want to miss that. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.